Cash call, everybody. Dale Archdekin, Brian Curtis back for another week. Welcome, everybody. We're live on Facebook now, and Brian Curtis and I are just, talking about what old men talk about, which is the weather. Brian, I have a public service announcement that I want to talk about today. And, as everybody here knows, you and I have our own respective coaching companies. And so we have a group within my coaching company. And what just happened is we had a client who reached out and they had an ISA that was in the training with us. They said, hey, my ISA really isn't showing up to the training because they said that they're too advanced for it. They said that, it's not really teaching them anything. And this is really for people that don't know how to make a phone call. So I'm like, wow, I take that personally, and I really care that value gets imparted to people and that we make an impact in people's businesses. And we absolutely never want to take a dollar if we aren't imparting value to somebody. So I go into the folders and I start listening to some of the recorded calls from this particular ISA. And they are, I would say not the worst I've ever heard. But they are in the bottom 20% of conversations that I've listened to. And so bottom 20%, right? Thank you. Samantha Grave just said she's been doing this for 20 years and she always takes something away from cash call. So literally this ISA is like in the bottom 20%, but goes back to their manager and says, oh, this training is beneath me. I'm too good for this kind of stuff. And of course the client who isn't really paying attention to what the ISA is doing or how they sound is like, oh, well, I definitely should stop paying for that if it's not any good and not making an impact. The reason that I'm giving this public service announcement is because I'm sure you've run into this, Brian, where an agent thinks that they are way better than they actually are. And until you listen to what the hell they're doing, neither you or that agent figures out how actually terrible they are. Or even ISAs who don't realize how terrible they are. And you have managers or owners or team leaders who really don't pay attention and don't get into the trenches and just leave it up to them. But somehow mysteriously that ISA doesn't show up with results. So this is my PSA for all my team leaders and broker owners out there. Go inspect, get in there, look into the guts. What were you going to say, Brian?
Well, I was just going to say in the last 2 years, I'm not saying it took no skills, but basically I've been saying this now for a couple of months. For the last couple of years, basically people were just beating on the door saying, please sell me a house, please sell me a house, please sell me a house. And so what I want all the team leaders who, and what Dale said, is understand that that's over. Not that we still don't have hot markets. We're still in a seller's market, but your skill set needs to increase significantly to have success today than just 90 days ago, in my opinion. And I think Dale probably agrees with that. So if you're just looking at results, great, you were getting awesome results for the last 2 years. I would buckle down and make sure, because as things get harder, as scripting becomes more important, as dialogues become more important, as the ability to close becomes more important, if you start seeing your numbers dip, and by the way, don't wait for your numbers to dip. Check it out now. Go listen to calls for the last 30 days. And I'm not saying all of them, we don't have that kind of time, but pick 10, 15, 20 calls randomly and listen to them. So for example, I'm going to play a call today and we're under contract on the house that they called about. Do I think it was a good call? No.
You're like, by the grace of God, we sold a house, not based on your sales skills.
Yeah. And I think Dale hasn't listened to the call, but I think he'll agree with me when we listen to it.
That's funny. Listen, man, I want to just share what we talked about back in the green room before we went live with Cash Call, which is you said, man, I want to buy every LSA lead I want to dump tons of money into Google LSA in my market. I can't buy anymore because there aren't anymore. And I want to point this out, Brian. This is really important for listeners to understand. Now, if we have a lot of solos here and they're not doing a bunch of spend, you're not going to feel the pain yet. But I work with teams who can't buy any more Zillow. I work with teams who can't buy any more PPC, right? People who can't buy any more LSA because the market there's only so much to go around. And the longer we go with this internet and marketing game, and the longer that there are companies out there teaching Tom, Dick, and Harry how to buy leads and how to do marketing and spend money on that, the pool will get smaller and smaller and smaller. That means your skill set has to increase. We had
I'm going to answer
a
the question that Stacy asked. So Stacy asked, what is LSA? I apologize. So I coach agents all the time. Don't use lingo. And I understand that not everyone's going to know all the lingo. So LSA stands for local service ad. So if you Google real estate in whatever market you're in, so real estate, Denver, Colorado, what you'll see is 3 agents pop up on the top of your screen. And that is a Google local service ad.
Yeah. And that it's relatively new. And the availability of those ads to purchase are, varying levels of limited in markets.
But and let me give you an idea what that looks like. I set my ad at my spend at $8,000 a month. Okay. Last month I spent $194. So
$194.
Yes.
Where Google had the opportunity to take 8,000 from you.
I've been thrilled. If I'd have spent $8,000, I'd had the best month of my life. But unfortunately, they just didn't have them to sell to me. So, and it's a very competitive space. It's not like you can't lock it out. So Google, the way they buy, it's a little bit different. So, there's probably 30 agents in my market buying Google local service. So I'm competing against all of them. And I've got 200 plus reviews. I'm at 4.9 stars. I'm doing all the right things. And I still could only buy, 10 of them a month. So just understand, and that's another reason to make sure you don't screw one up when you get it, because they're really strong leads, but you don't get enough of them. So when you get them, make sure you don't screw them up.
Yep. So let's, why don't we listen to that, since we're on that topic, let's go ahead and listen to that call.
All right. And this is a really long call, so we'll fast through for part of it. When I say long call, it's a long call for us. It's 14 minutes long, so it's not something we're going to sit and listen to the entire thing. We'll fast forward through part of it. So, all right. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me, Dale.
Hello?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Tracy. My name's Tracy Stewart, and I'm checking in on realtors because we'd like to sell our house kind of as soon as possible.
Awesome. Absolutely. Where are you guys located?
Oh, okay. If you guys serve, I thought it said your advertisement, Bella Vista.
So it's interesting. So this is something to understand. So we run Google LSA in about 15 cities. So I'd never heard someone say that before. He expected for that agent to know that it's in Bella Vista. So just a heads up on that. Like they may expect you to say, oh, you're in such and such city. Well, if you're like me, I have a bunch of tiny little cities all around, and we have to work them all, or otherwise we're going to go broke because there's just not enough to do one city. So just something to keep in mind.
Well, so Brian, let's talk about. Oh, sorry. Here, maybe there we go. We're good. Let's talk about this. So, how will you change it? Oh gosh, geez. How will you change your scripting to accommodate for that known possibility, which is that this lead can have a misperception based on the way Google has positioned you?
All I would want to say is, hey, this is Brian Curtis Realty Group. I'm a local agent. How can I help? So I want them to say I'm a local agent. At least they go, well, you're not in this city. I'm like, well, we work all of these cities because that's the way real estate works in our market. Like if you live in Denver, you don't need to necessarily work 20 cities around there because Denver's huge, or Philadelphia. Now, but most people in Philadelphia probably don't work Philadelphia. They work little tiny, cities around there or little towns around that. So I think adding a local agent is a valuable piece of information there.
Yeah. So what I'm thinking is when she went to ask her question, which is, so where are you guys at? Or where do you live or whatever it was, right? I think maybe she could just preface it. So part of the scripting might preface it. Hey, we serve 6 different cities in this area. Where's your home located?
Sure. And another way around that actually is, hey, if you don't mind, what's your address? Because now I don't actually have to say, the person's not going to say, well, you should know my address. They're going to say, hey, it's such and such address, 123 Main Street. And you might have to say, hey, we work in several cities in that area. What's the thing? So
well, Shelly Miller messaged that in. Instead of asking where you're located, ask for the address. There you go. Look at that.
There you go.
Now, I don't know who said it first, whether it was Sherry or you, or Sherry.
I don't know.
Shelly.
Brilliant minds think alike. How about that?
There you go. Right. Look at that. We've been preaching to this crowd long enough that they're giving us advice.
I like it. All right, here we go.
Awesome.
7 Watson
Okay.
Lane, actually.
7 Watson. Actually represented a buyer on Watson, so I am familiar with the street.
So I like that, by the way, just pure coincidence. I mean, in Bella Vista, where this house is, you might have 50 houses on a street. Like it's not built this is the way it's built. So saying, hey, I've actually that's a good thing, building a little rapport, some credibility. So I actually really like that she said that. And then it turns.
No.
And when you guys say fast, like what kind of timeline are you thinking about?
Well, as fast as, reasonably possible.
Yeah. So just to give you a little bit about my resume, I actually
All right, pause. No, wait, pause.
cervical.
Pause. Before she even does this, man, can I just give a PSA here? Don't start selling. Why are you selling? Why are you pitching? You don't need, this person is already sold. Just finish doing your discovery work. You don't need, you're selling past the sale right now is what's going on.
I agree. And it's just funny as I listen, just like you, Dale, I listen to calls and I'm like, all right, I got to call this guy, or I got to email this person, or I got to give him feedback. That's exactly my same thought. Like, you don't have to pitch. We're not there yet. Make an appointment. This person, and again, understand the intent of the lead when they call. Google local service, for those of you who aren't currently using them, they're pretty high intent leads. They Googled, I need a real estate agent in Denver, Colorado. Like, it's not like they said they just stumbled across your ad on Facebook. They had intent. And so this person wants to sell their house. And so you don't need to pitch on the phone. I completely agree with that. And so, yeah, please don't do that.
Yeah, actually, Brian, can we, do you want to keep listening to this, or can we sort of pause from the recording? Because I want to expand on this topic with people just so that they really understand it, because I don't know if they definitely understand what we're saying when we say don't pitch right now, and that you aren't ready to pitch right now. So everybody watching this right now, both Brian and I have the experience to hear the fact that that pitch that she started going into was unnecessary and was premature. And yes. I'll just tell them why I feel that way, and then you can mimic that or give your own insight too. Here's why I think it was too early and that it was unnecessary. As Brian said, the intent. The guy came in saying, I want to sell my house and I want a real estate agent who can sell my house. What that means is he's already under the presumption that we are real estate agents who can sell his house, and he feels like he would use us. Okay, so he's already there and we don't need to start doing pitching. She asked a really good question when she asked, when you say fast, how quickly do you mean? And he said, well, as quickly as makes sense, or whatever he said, right? So he kind of qualified it. She could have just continued with her discovery. Okay, great. So if we sold your home in the next, I don't know, week or two, would you be able to be packed and ready to move in 30 days? Would that work for you? Right? So we just continue with the discovery. And even with that discovery question, I then reinforce the fact that we are very skilled and knowledgeable and experienced agents, because we can get it done that quickly, just based on the nature of my question.
Absolutely. And so, and it's funny because, we talk about this all the time. So when someone gives you call it follow the no. So I'm going to reinvent this. I just made this up. In this situation, we need to follow the yes. Right. Okay. So, and I just made that up. Feel free to trademark.
I will. I'm going to put a Brian Curtis underneath that.
Okay. But here's the thing. So, hey, Mr. Seller, just so my understanding, what do you consider quick? Are you talking about a week, 2 weeks, a month? What do you consider? Oh, we just want to get it sold as quickly as possible. Well, perfect. With that in mind, the next step for me, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, but I want to make sure we're taking care of this. Why don't I set up a time to come look at your house? Because obviously it's a high urgency situation for you. I want to come look at your house because that's really the next step. So, when would you be available? I have time even today or tomorrow. Which of those works better for you? And again, I'm not going to do that if somebody doesn't say, I want to sell my house. Like, this guy has got high intent. There's a thing, and Dale kind of mentioned it, don't talk past the close. There's no reason. And ultimately,
don't sell past the sale.
Yeah, I'm not going to play this part because I want to, again, there's a lot, this 14-minute call. We don't have time for all that. But one of the things she starts talking about is the commission.
Oh my God. Okay, but before we get to that, before we unpack that, okay, we just talked about not selling past the sale, how her pitch, how, let me tell you how great I am. Let me tell you how I'm going to do a great job for you. That was a pitch that totally unnecessary. She didn't need to go there. And I want to give everybody listening a little bit of an advanced tip. If you find yourself in a situation where you feel in a sale, where you feel that you need to pitch, where you need to say, well, Brian, let me tell you how I can serve your needs, or Brian, let me tell you about my company and what we do and how we provide results for you, whatever, that's a pitch, right? If you find yourself where you need to do that, this is your advanced tip. First, find out what Brian thinks he wants in an agent. Okay, do that first before you start pitching. And that would probably sound like this. Brian, have you thought about what's important to you about the agent you list your home with or the company you list your home with? Brian, have you ever worked with a listing agent and how was your experience? Is there anything you'd change about that, right? This is advanced tip, everybody. If I know I'm going to pitch the guy, find out what the hell he wants to hear before I pitch him.
It's always funny, and so I 100% agree. So we use a thing we call basically it's a buyer information form, which is basically it's discovery. And I tell agents when because the way we do our business, we have lead day. So basically for somewhere between 2 and 5 days a month, you get leads, you're on call, and that's a day you've got to be on. So I say, look, when you're on lead day, keep this thing in front of you. I'm not saying you got to fill it out for every single person, but what you want to do is just kind of use it as a checklist. One of our questions on there is, what are you looking for in an agent? Why do we ask that? Well, there's a ton of reasons. And I love what Dale said. We actually create objections sometimes where we didn't need to create objections. So, for example, if somebody says, what's your commission? Then I need to answer that question, but I'm not going to talk about it until I need to. As a matter of fact, unless I'm asked that question, and I will answer that question honestly, but when I answer that question, after I've taken a tour of the house, after I've done a CMA, after I've shown all my marketing, and it's about on page 3 of my listing agreement. And here's my commission pitch for all those of you guys wonder what that is. Hey, so we charge 6%. We offer 3% to any other agent and any other brokerage who sells your house, and our company makes 3%. That's the entire thing, by the way. That's it. And by the way, why don't I get a lot of commission objections? And I'll tell you why, because I don't emphasize it. So many agents create commission objections by going, hey, by the way, this. And the guy's like, maybe I can ask about commission because this person really seems to think all we're doing is creating an objection where they don't exist. I'm not saying that I never get a commission objection, but I get them significantly less than I see online. And that's because by the time I talk about commission, we've built tons of rapport. I've shown them tons of value. They want to work with me. And they're like, yeah, 6%, great, whatever. It works. Yeah. Stop creating objections where they don't need to exist.
Excellent. Can we listen to her? I want to hear where the train goes off the tracks here.
So you want to listen to, okay, I'll bring it back.
Can we? I want to hear where she brings up commission, man, because like
listing agreement signed, photographer scheduled, Photoshop, and then going live. And
hold on, pause it and reshare and your sound.
Okay. I was trying to find out where it was because I had fast forwarded it already. So bear with me. We might be a little bit out of sync.
Turnaround in terms of getting a listing agreement signed, photographer scheduled, photo touch-ups, and then going live. And do you currently live in the home?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
This was what I was going to ask you if it scares you off, but me and my wife are separate.
I fast forwarded too far. So
you want to sell your house? Nothing scares me off.
Well, there is that. And she wasn't scared. I'll give her that.
And yeah, I'm a great listing agent and I charge 6%. That's so that I'm able to pay the buyer's agent, they're the ones that bring us all the buyers, 3%, and then the other 3% covers commission, as well as all the photographs, MLS listings. We list across the multiple listing service. Zillow,
Oh my God.
Realtor.com, Opcity, Redfin.
Brian,
We
pause.
even still put houses.
This is what I call the full Monty. You remember that movie, The Full Monty?
I
Was it
do.
about a male review where you expose your bits, right? She just did the full Monty. She just opened the trench coat and was like, check it out. What do you think about this for 6%? Oh God, please don't do that.
Well, and I'm if Dale wants me to play more, I'll play more. But here,
I wanted to hear it.
here's why that's so important, though, because first of all, she didn't create an objection, but she could have created an objection. That's a very big possibility. And here's the thing: we're
Yeah.
talking about our price. And how many times do you hear this? And this frustrates me when I'm listening to phone calls. Hey, what do you charge for commission? And the agent will dodge it. Well, I don't want to tell you that until I see your house. Okay, great. And then they ask again, what do you charge for commission? Well, before I show you my thing, I would, there's all these different scripts. This guy didn't ask, and we see. And so 99% of agents are afraid to even mention it. I will say this, she wasn't afraid to mention it. That being said, I don't want to tell somebody what I charge until they know what I'm giving them.
Yeah, man.
Now, yeah. So anyway, I know I've monopolized the call today, but
I think this is important, man. Like this is the kind of thing that we need to unpack, and there's a lot to this. You and I hear these calls in a different way than probably a lot of our listeners do. You and I have the depth of experience to hear so many better ways to go about this. And this is a teaching tool. So a lot of these people listening to Cash Call probably don't have the experience that we have. And I know that people tell me all the time, they take these recordings and they play this stuff for their sales team. So me and you are coaching these sales teams out there right now. We don't know who they are, but we're helping them out, and they don't hear these calls the way they do. So I think it's really important that we unpack it.
Good. And
go ahead.
Here's another thing, by the way. If somebody asks for an appointment, which this guy did, he didn't say, please, I'd like an appointment. Schedule the appointment.
Schedule the appointment. Right? This guy was like, I want to sell my house. Show me where to go and how to do it. And then she proceeded to narrowly avoid losing this in multiple ways, I would say.
And so this is, we talked about this at the very front end when we were kind of prepping this thing. And so this call came in on May 6th. And by the way, this house is under contract 3 days ago. So it makes my point that we're in my market, clearly, you still don't have to be really, really skilled. And the funny thing is, this agent's a good agent. Obviously, I have some things I want to talk to this individual about and push them up. But here's my point. 6 months from now, this call will get hung up on and will not close.
This and that's what objected to. It'll get objected to, hung up on. They'll say, thanks. We're talking to a few other agents right now.
Yeah, and actually he does. And honestly, the thing that saves this deal is his wife. They're getting divorced. That was another thing. I think we heard that. Are you scared away by that? The answer, by the way, is always no. She can always fire somebody if it becomes too much of a train wreck, right?
Yeah.
And we're not scared away with that. But we've got to make sure that, in this situation, in which doesn't get done very well, it gets done well enough. Again, we close this or what's pending. How am I going to get your wife's signature? Mm-hmm. In the state of Arkansas, I can't speak for every state, whether she's on the deed or not. In the state of Arkansas, we have dowry rights, and therefore she owns half this house and he can't sell it without her. And he kind of brings it up a little bit, but she didn't. So understand your skill set. Hey, absolutely. I completely understand. Let me ask you this, by the way. So I'm sorry you're going through a divorce. That's never fun for anybody. With that in mind, I'm going to need your wife's husband, significant other signature as well. How should I go about doing that? Would it be best for the three of us to meet together, or do you want me to contact her directly? What works best in this situation? So.
Yeah. Exactly. By the way, so we have a couple of comments and you can read those, Brian. Real quick though, what you just brought up, everybody listening, you need to know in your state, in your municipality, whether or not you need the signature of a divorced party, right? So here you don't. If you're not on the deed or the title, you don't have ownership in it. But in the state of Arkansas, you do. So I just realized, do every one of your agents know that? I don't know if every one of the agents of the teams we work with or coach know that stuff either in their own market. And that's something to know.
Kind of a funny story along those lines. I was at closing one time, and the guy says to me, halfway through the closing, we're sitting at the table. He goes, "Yeah, I got married yesterday."
Oh man.
Literally stopped the closing, called his now wife, say, "I need you to show up at closing." We had to stop the closing in the middle of the closing because, again, his wife had to sign paperwork.
Wow.
Yeah. So these are important things to know, to Dale's point. That's only
Yeah.
happened to me once, and I knew they were together. I met them. We looked at houses together. It wasn't a mystery, but basically the guy got married the day before he was selling his house, and now his wife needs to sign the paperwork.
Wow. Yeah, doesn't happen in my market, but I think that's a lesson for everybody listening. We have people from all over the place in all sorts of different markets, and in Canada. Hi to my Canadians. Know what your laws are.
Yeah, so I'll read. You said that. I love. I'm going to read Sherry's comment again. Instead of asking where you're located, ask for the address. I thought that was a perfect comment. I thought that was amazing. And then Mike Robbins says in this call, set the appointment first, then ask discovery second. And I agree with that. So let's talk about this real quick, Dale. High intent calls, your Zillows, your sign calls, your realtor.coms. Anytime the phone is ringing on your end, these are high intent calls. And if somebody says, "Hey, the first thing that we should do, in my opinion, is set an appointment." So for example, Zillow. So, "Hey, Zillow connected me, said you were interested in 123 Main Street. Be happy to set up a time to take a look at that. Would that work best for you today or tomorrow?"
Yep.
I like alternate closes, and I think that works really well. In this situation, great, Mike or Bob or Fred, I don't remember the guy's name. It doesn't really matter. I just, really our next step, and it sounds like you're really motivated, and I want to make sure that we get this done for you as quickly as possible. When would be best for us to meet? I could meet today or tomorrow. Which would those work better for me? And then I'll ask you a few other questions after that.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
That's a perfect script right there. What you just said. That was the same one that I was thinking of, which is, "Hey, great. Thanks for reaching out to us. What we'll do is set a time for me to come and see your home, talk to you about selling your home. And then I'll ask you a few questions. So are you able to meet this week? Would Tuesday or Thursday work better for you?" Straight to the appointment.
Absolutely. And again, now let's flip this on its head for a second, since we're talking about this. If I get a Facebook lead, that's not the script I'm looking at.
No.
Like, and I'm kidding, but I'm not. So, a Facebook lead comes in, and I'm going to say something like, "Hey, Brian Curtis Realty Group, I saw that you were doing some searching on our website. Out of curiosity, are you looking to make a move soon, or are you just window shopping?" So notice there was no question whatsoever about, "Hey, when do you want to meet? When do you want to meet?" There's a really good chance it was 2:00 in the morning. They couldn't sleep, and they're clicking on pictures, and they're like, "Whoa!" Meet people where they're at and understand that each lead source has a slightly different intent.
Yeah. It's funny, man, is we're going to have to start reworking this, because I started using window shopping probably 6 years ago. And I know Robbie T uses a very similar version of that. So he's they're programming that into all sorts of CRMs and things like that. You're using it, we're training it, we say it on here all the time. So what's going to happen is window shopping is going to be proliferated out into the entire market. So, I'm just looking around the corner. I think we're going to have to, individually kind of change that up, because with so many teams in individual markets buying the same PPC, internet leads, yada, 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 and using very similar language in our marketing, our drip automations, people are going to start picking that up.
Yeah, no, you're right. And it's it's funny, when I used to work in another sales job, one of the things that would start happening is I would say a thing or somebody else would say a thing, and a week and a half later, every single salesperson was saying it. And it was crazy. I can remember our sales manager saying in front of us, going, "We're not saying this anymore. Stop saying this." Literally one person, everybody's kind of liked it. And so we've got to be careful of that. And that's very interesting. And by the way, be careful of your own stuff. Like, you probably heard me say this before, but I say out of curiosity, arguably too much. And I'm aware of that. I've been working on it. And, I can say it twice in conversation. And after that, it becomes a redundancy and graffiti.
I've noticed people referring to the Brian Curtis out of curiosity. I've been hearing it a lot more frequently.
Really?
So you're
Okay.
you're having an impact out there.
All right. Well, and maybe we need to go with what specifically. That's another great one that works along those lines. Those are all NLP things, by the way, for those of you who are NLP nerds.
I don't even use any kind of preface statement. I just ask my question. You know what I mean? So, and I think that has a tendency, it certainly works, you know, in faster, more urban markets. And I think that maybe
East Coast.
What's that?
East Coast.
Yeah, East Coast and urban markets. And I think that, you know, in some of the southern, slower markets, it's, you know, probably better to use some like softening, prefacing sorts of words and phrases.
Yeah. Hey, if you don't mind, I got a couple of quick questions for you. By the way, that's another thing that didn't happen that I noticed in this call, and I noticed in another call I list. Don't ask permission. Tell people what you're going to do, especially if you're 5 minutes into a phone call. So here's what we're going to do next. Not if it's okay with you. No, we've established rapport. We've built this up. I'm in charge now. We're working together. I've paced you. We're on the same page. Now I'm going to lead you. Yeah. So what we're going to do next is this and this and this. And if that doesn't work for that person, they'll object. They'll say, oh, no, that doesn't work for me. So remember, on the front end, we're building that rapport. We're pacing, you know, by the way, when I mean pacing, we're modeling what they're saying so that they're feeling comfortable with us. And then we're going to lead. And that's when sales becomes really good, is when we're going to lead. So anyway, Dale, that's what I got today. And I'm sorry that I took all our time, but I think it was a good call.
Not at all, man. Great call. I think everybody got a lot out of this. And so everybody listening, we're going to have a special guest next week, Sherry Johnson, who is a coach and trainer and is really big in the Berkshire Hathaway space. She's deep in there, and she's going to come in and talk to us. So she's really an expert in lead generation and lead conversion and marketing, you know, a lot of the sort of personal marketing space. So she's going to come and talk to us. And, you know, Brian, I've been working to get some additional guests in here that can talk with us about on the lead generation side, right? Lots of different ways about lead generation. What I'm noticing, and I know we have to end, what I'm noticing is that a lot of agents and small teams out there do not have their lead generation dialed in. And, you know, they just get overwhelmed by choice. They end up spending a whole lot of money on low quality lead sources, and then don't understand, you know, why they struggle. So I think that bringing in some additional methodologies for people to take from and learn from can help them.
I think that's amazing. And I look forward to hearing from Sherry next week. I'm excited about that. So awesome. Thanks for setting that up.
Yeah, man. All right. Great seeing you, Brian. Everybody, thanks for joining Dale and Brian for Cash Call.
Thanks, everybody.